الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على سبيله إلى يوم الدين ما بعد. And continuing where we left off in Manhaj as-salikeen, وصلنا الباب صلاة الجماعة والإمامة, the congregational prayer and the imamate. So matters related to praying in congregation. وهي فرض عين للصلوات الخمس على الرجال حضرا وسفرا. It mentions that it is a individual obligation for the 5 daily prayers upon the men, whether they are resident or traveling. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: لقد هممت أن آمر بالصلاة فتقام ثم آمر رجلا يؤم الناس ثم أنطلق برجال معهم حزم من حطب إلى قوم لا يشهدون الصلاة فأحرق عليهم بيوتهم بالنار. متفق عليه. So I mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ said, I intended to command that the salah be established, and then I'll command a person to lead the people in the prayer. Then I would go with some men carrying belts of firewood to the people who do not witness the salah, those who do not join the congregational prayer, and burn down their houses, showing the importance of what? Salat al-Jama'ah. Other evidences that give us an inclination to how important the obligation of praying in Jama'ah is when the blind man said to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he doesn't find someone who will lead him and take him to the masjid. فهل لي رخصة? He asked if there was any concession for him. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم نعم, ثم قال هل تسمع النداء? Do you hear the call to prayer? فقال نعم, فقال فعجبه, then answer it. So there was no concession for him despite being blind. Now, but if he hears the call to salah, the adhan, then he has to go and answer the call regardless of his situation, unless he's in a sickness where he's not able to witness the salah. From this, بعض أهل العلم قال, the one who is obligatory for them to go to pray in the jama'ah is within the distance they are from the masjid. Had the adhan been called out aloud, they would be able to hear it. Now, if you're able to hear the adhan, if it was to be called aloud, then you'd have to go and respond to the call. These are the things that I mentioned based on these evidences. وَأَقَلُّهَا إِمَامٌ وَمَأْمُومٌ. The least that is required for a jama'ah is one person as the imam and one person following him. وَكُلُّ مَا كَانَ أَكْثَرَ فَهُوَ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ. The more that you have, the better, more beloved it is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وقال صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة الجماعة أفضل من صلاة الفذ ب27 درجة. متفق عليه. Prayer in the jama'ah, in the congregation, is better than praying by oneself by 27 levels. 27 levels is better, and this is متفق عليه. I mentioned إذا صليتما في رحالكما ثم أتيتما مسجد جماعة فصليا معهم فإنها لكم نافلة. رواه أهل السنن. Now it mentions also, let's say for example you prayed within your homes and then you came to a masjid and they are also praying the congregational prayer. Should you sit down and wait for them to finish the salah? Like, you should also join the jama'ah and pray with them, and then it will be recorded for you as a voluntary salah. So it's not for you to enter the masjid and say I've already prayed. Like, if you've already prayed, pray with the jama'ah and gain the reward as was mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam here. This hadith was collected by Ahl al-Sunan, yani Abu Dawood wa Nasa'i wa Tirmidhi wa Ibn Majah. I mentioned وعن أبي هريرة مرفوعا رضي الله عنه إنما جعل الإمام ليؤتم به. The Imam was made to be followed. فَإِذَا كَبَّرَ فَكَبِّرُوا وَلَا تُكَبِّرُوا حَتَّى يُكَبِّرَ. When he says Allahu Akbar, then you say Allahu Akbar. But you don't say Allahu Akbar prior to the Imam saying Allahu Akbar. وَإِذَا رَكَعَ فَرْكَعُوا وَلَا تَرْكَعُوا حَتَّى يَرْكَعُ. And when he goes into ruku', then you go into ruku', but do not proceed, don't go before him. Don't go into ruku' until the Imam has gone into ruku'. وَإِذَا قَالَ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ فَقُولُوا اللَّهُمَّ رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. When the Imam says سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ, as he's raising from ruku', what do you say as the ones behind the Imam? You don't say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ based on this hadith. That's the strongest opinion. Because he says فَقُولُوا, then say اللَّهُمَّ رَبَّنَا وَلَكَ الْحَمْدُ. Had it been to say سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ, then he will say فَقُولُوا سَمِعَ اللَّهُ لِمَنْ حَمِدَهُ. جيد. I'm on the floor with you in the small room, but there's no door handle. Oh, you trapped. لا بارك الله فيك. كيف أعرفك هنا؟ ما شاء الله. So alhamdulillah, he then mentioned وَإِذَا سَجَدَ فَاسْجُدُوا وَلَا تَسْجُدُوا حَتَّى يَسْجُدَ. He mentioned if he goes into sujood, then do not go into sujood until the Imam has gone into sujood. وَإِذَا صَلَّى قَاعِدًا فَصَلُّوا قُعُودًا أَجْمَعُونَ. And if he prays sitting down, then you should also pray sitting down. Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah says, when you're praying behind the Imam, you have a choice of standing or sitting. No. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Of the things that Ahlul Ilm also mentioned, let's say you join the Salah late. You have a rak'ah to make up. If you're in the third rak'ah, for example, or you have to make up and the Imam's in the last tashahhud, you cannot say Allahu Akbar and stand up until the Imam has said As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah, As-salamu alaykum wa rahmatullah. Then you say Allahu Akbar and you get up. They say if he says Assalamu alaykum wa rahmatullah once and then you say Allahu Akbar and get up, and that salah doesn't count for you as the salah of that jama'ah. It counts for you as the salah al-nafilah. Because you have preceded the Imam. So you have to be very cautious in preceding the Imam. As I mentioned in the hadith, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامُ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. The Imam was made to be followed. Sometimes you find a person, the Imam has finished ruku'. He says, Sami Allahu liman hamid. The person's already started to move their feet. They've already brought their feet together because they're going to go into sujood. What's the haste? Intadr, and wait. Or they're waiting, so you're looking, okay, who went in sujood first? You or the Imam? Don't be hasty. Imagine, for example, the Imam is standing ready for the Salah and he's about to say Allahu Akbar to begin the Salah. But you're hasty, you say Allahu Akbar before him. You're not praying with the Imam. You're praying by yourself. You haven't entered in the Salah of the Imam because you said the Takbir to Ihram before the Imam. So one is to be patient, take one's time and follow the Imam, not be in competition. Don't do it at the same time. Now, also of the things that is mentioned, وينبغي أن يتقدم الإمام وأن يتراص المأمون وَيُكْمِلُونَ الْأَوَّلِ بِالْأَوَّلِ. Or the thing that is upon the people behind the Imam is one, the Imam precedes, the Imam is at the front. The Imam moves first. وَأَنْ يَتَرَاصَ الْمَأْمُونَ. The people behind the Imam, they stand closing the gaps. They stand together in congregation, closing the gaps, straightening the rows. وَيُكْمِلُونَ الْأَوَّلِ بِالْأَوَّلِ. And they complete the first row, then the row after it, then the row after it. Don't be of those who come and you're waiting in the third row, just waiting for people to join before you. لا. كملوا الصفوف. الصف الأول بالأول. The first row, the second row, and the third row. Don't be chilling and waiting for people to join before you. لا. Join. الأولى الصف الأول. The best row is the first row for the men. And as for the women, in situations where there's not segregation between the men's side and the women's side, they will pray behind the men. They will pray behind the men. Of the things that is mentioned, من صلى فذا ركعة خلف الصف لغير عذر أعاد صلاته. Whoever prays one rak'ah by themselves behind the row and no one else joins them, then they have to repeat the salah. So they have to repeat the salah. So one shouldn't be standing in the row by themselves. And that is لغير عذر, for no reason. Without a reason, without an excuse. But it's not the thing that's mentioned. Let's say, for example, he came and the Imam was in ruku' and he joined in ruku' and then someone joined him before he went into sujood, then the salah is correct. Now, it mentioned Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he was asked about this and he gave a detailed answer. The first question was, هل تصح صلاة المنفرد خلف الصف أو لا? Is the one who prays by themselves behind the row, is the salah correct or not? That's the first stance. The second point, إذا قلنا لا تصح فوجد الصف تاما فماذا يصنع? If they come and we say it's not correct, the salah is not correct, but they found the row is complete, what do they do then? They're the only person and the row in front of them is complete. What do? They don't have the ability to join because they're going to be by themselves. Now, he mentioned, أما المقام الأول, as for the first station, whether the salah is correct or not, اختلف العلماء رحمه الله. The scholars, they differ in this. فقال بعضهم تصح صلاة المنفرد خلف الصف لعذر ولغير عذر. He mentioned, some of them say it's correct, the salah is correct, whether they did it with an excuse or no excuse. And he mentioned صرح بعضهم بكراهة ذلك لغير عذر وهو مذهب الأئمة الثلاثة المالك والشافعي وأبي حنيفة. So he mentioned, they say clearly that it's disliked if it's done without an excuse. And that is the madhab of Imam Malik والشافعي وأبي حنيفة. واستدلوا بصحة صلاة المرأة خلف الصف حيث قالوا إن الرجال والنساء سواء في الأحكام الشرعية And they mentioned that is based on the evidence of the correctness of the woman praying behind the row. And they mentioned because the men and the women are the same in regards to the rules of the Sharia. وبأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يأمر أبا بكر حين ركع قبل أن يدخل الصف أن يعيد الصلاة. And that is because when Abu Bakr, he entered the masjid, went into ruku' straight away and went to the saf, he was not commanded to what? Repeat the salah. And he done ruku' before he entered into the saf. And that hadith is in Bukhari. وأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أدار ابن عباس من ورائه في أثناء الصلاة فإذا جاز أن يكون الانفراد في جزء من الصلاة جاز أن يكون في جميعها إذ لو كان مبتلا للصلاة لم يكن بين قليله وكثيره فرق كالوقوف قدام الإمام. He mentioned when the Prophet ﷺ was praying and Ibn Abbas was with him, he moved him to behind him during the salah. And this is in Bukhari and Muslim. And so if it was permissible for a person to be by himself in part of the salah, or basically he moved him to be beside him from being behind him. If it was permissible for part of the salah, then it would be permissible for all of the salah. You see, because it mentioned, if it was something that would negate the salah, then there's no difference between the small amount or the larger amount. Now, just like standing in front of the imam. If you stand in front of the imam, the salah is not correct. The salah is not correct. Also of the things that is mentioned, وأجابوا عن الأحاديث النافية للصلاة المنفرد خلف الصف بأن المراد بها نفي الكمال. The ahadith that mention that is not permissible or what that it's not correct for you to pray by yourself behind the row, they mention that this negation does not negate the salah but negates the completeness of the salah. فهو نفي الكمال. Just like when the Prophet Muhammad said, La salata bi hadrati ta'am in Sahih Muslim. There's no salah if the food is present. What does that mean? Does it mean the salah is batil if there's food there and you pray? La. It means the completeness of the salah is negated because your mind is going to be munshagilun bit ta'am. It's going to be busy thinking about the food. For yu'athir fi al-khushu'. This will have an effect in the khushu' of the salah. But the salah is still correct, but it's disliked for you to pray when you're hungry and there's food present. Now, وقال بعض العلماء إن صلاة المنفرد خلف الصف لا تصح وهذا مذهب الإمام أحمد المشهور عند أصحابه وهو من مفرداته. This is of the things that only Imam Ahmed says. That's the madhab of Imam Ahmed. Other than them don't share the same opinion. And also in another narration of Imam Ahmed it says that it is correct in agreement with the other أئمة, the other Imams of the Madahib. واستدل أصحاب هذا القول بالأثر والنظر. Those who have this opinion that it is not correct, they give opinion by athar and also looking into observing and contemplating. Now, I mentioned the hadith, I mentioned فَإِنَّ لَا صَلَاةَ لِلْمُنْفَرِدِ خَلْفَ الصَّفِ. There's no salah for when he's by himself behind the row. هذا حديث حسن. حديث حسن وفيه ضعف ولكن له شواهد. There has other hadith that bear witness to it to give it some form of strength. Also it mentions أما النظر فإن الجماعة هي الاجتماع. It mentions jama'ah itself, it means congregation. So if you're by yourself, you're not considered to be within a congregation. He mentions a detailed explanation regarding what those who say is not permissible say about the evidences of those who say it is correct. Now, and this is why knowledge is important when we have to understand principles. Because some people, they will only be aware of an evidence, but not be aware of principles in handling the evidence. Okay? Because he says, Al-Qawl al-Rajih, the correct opinion, this is Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah. He says, the correct opinion, that the one who prays behind the row by themselves, the salah is batila.
Sorry, sir. The whole time I haven't really understood when you mean. So everyone's in salah.
Everyone's in the rows, and then you're behind the row by yourself because there's no space.
Oh yeah.
The rows are full. So you're in the next row, but you're alone. There's no one with you in that row.
Oh, yeah.
You're by yourself.
You can't do that.
That's what is said there. That's the point that's mentioned. You can't do that.
Wait, so how do you
But
pray?
we're going to finish, don't worry. We ain't finished. This is when you start. This is when you start to appreciate fiqh. Fiqh, it makes you think and not be hasty. Because we may have an opinion today and change tomorrow. Why? Because we gain access to more knowledge and more principles. Principles that allow you to handle the evidences. Okay? So, for example, it mentions القول الراجح وجوب المصافة وأن من صلى وحده خلف الصلاة فصلاته الباطلة وعليه أن يعيدها لتركه واجب المصافة. It mentioned the one who prays by themselves, what is the correct opinion? The salah is batil, they have to repeat it because they left off the obligation of standing in the row. But then he mentioned ولكن هذا الواجب كغيره من الواجبات. This obligation is like other than it from other obligations. What does that mean? يسقط بفوات محله أو بالعجز عنه عجزا شرعيا أو عجزا حسيا لقوله تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم. He mentions, however, this obligation, like other obligations, it will drop if the place of the obligation is not able to be fulfilled, or there is an incapability due to a legislated disability. You're not able to do it because of a legislative inability to do so, or a physical, tangible inability. So if the row is full and there's no space, what can you do? You have no ability to stand in the row. They're all full. There's no space at all. And there's no one else who's come. So what do? You pray. Why? فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. And also the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu مَا أَمَرْتُكُمْ بِهِ فَأْتُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Whatever I've commanded you with, then bring it to the best of your ability. وَمَا نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْهُ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. And whatever I've prohibited you from, stay away from it. So when it comes to the prohibition, there's no room for ability. You have to stay away from it. As for the obligations, then you do it to the best of your ability. If you don't have the ability to do something, then the obligation is taken away from you. سبيل المثال حج. What does Allah say? وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حَجُّ الْبَيْتِ مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. And a right Allah has upon mankind is that they make Hajj, the one who has the ability to do so. So we understand Hajj is what? Wajib. رُكْنٌ مِنْ أَرْكَانِ الْإِسْلَامِ. ولكن if a person does not have the ability to perform Hajj, the obligation drops from them. Because if we say it's wajib and you don't have the ability and you're not fulfilling it, then you are what? Sinful. And that's why when you study fiqh, as we get more advanced, what do we also study? Usul al-fiqh and qawa'id al-fiqhiyya. Qawa'id al-fiqhiyya, these are the principles that allow you to handle the evidence. To understand how do we deal with the evidence that says you can't pray behind the imam by yourself. Qawa'id al-fiqhiyya. Where are the qawa'id al-fiqhiyya derived from? Al-Quran wa Sunnah. So it's not that someone is playing with their mind and thinking, it's principles based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, as I mentioned, if a person does not find a space, the row is full, then they pray by themselves behind the row. Just like a woman, if she comes to pray and there's only men and she's by herself, she prays by herself behind the row. She doesn't join the men. Allah musta'an.
Wait, so Ustad, so you can't join that salah if no one's next to you, basically?
You can.
You can.
It's just the women that can't.
Oh, okay, the men can.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
No, the woman can pray. If the row is full, if the row is full,
Yeah.
and let's say you come, the rows are full to the windows,
Yeah.
or to the place that is considered walking part, so you can't pray there anyway because people have to come into the masjid that way. So that's the entrance, you can't pray there. That row is full. If you stand there, people will not be able to enter the masjid. So you cannot stand there. The only place is behind the imam. You don't wait to say maybe in 5 minutes someone will come. You pray. Because the obligation has fallen from you because you don't have the ability to what? Fulfill it. So the qa'idah la wajiba ma'al ajiz. There's no obligation when you don't have the ability.
No, but look, you have the same phone as the one on your right. That it doesn't happen to these ones. It's probably because that one's more advanced. Look at the materials. I think the difference of material also.
This is a 12.
12 only.
I appreciate your good thoughts of me, brother.
These ones, your phone, we have the same one on the right.
What's that, 11?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's 11.
I think it's because they're less advanced to pick up the heat.
Yeah, but this is ajib, akhi. Every day, brother, it's doing this, man.
Telling you to upgrade.
iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it.
No,
I'm gonna have to go Android. I think I have to accept that maybe
No.
it's time to depart ways from
I
Apple,
hear some
bro.
people have one and the other. So one will have for certain uses and the other for the other.
No, when you're
How
iPhone,
will
you
I
have to stick
afford to
to it.
live,
That
man?
could be the middle
You're
part.
there for life.
But it's gone now, anyway. Allah musta'an, bro.
Maybe
Where's this? This shows that it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because things getting hot like this, we're not in the sun or anything. And it's actually very hot. Oh, wait there.
Told you, people.
Listen, I didn't, until I get Android, I haven't committed. I'm still loyal. And Apple's proved why there's a loyal thing going on here. It's back on, the live has not gone. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. But we have to look into this for the sake of the da'wah. So people can go back to the lessons, you know. So ajib, Allah musta'an.
But they're not going to see you.
Eh?
They're not going to see you. The camera. You're going to be pixels.
Alhamdulillah. As long as they can hear. Alhamdulillah. The main thing I want to أخذ من نص واحد. Rulings are never taken from democratic institutions and politics. However, when we look at the overall well-being of Islam and the Muslims, it may be wajib for you to vote. For example, one governing party may be safeguarding the affairs of the Muslims in that land. Another governing party may be promoting things that are going to have a major impact on the Muslims. So who are you going to vote for? The lesser evil, right? Because maybe there's one who wants to ban hijab, for example, or ban niqab, for example. or wants to impose a certain ideology in the educational system. So now you may be obliged to vote, let alone it being permissible. But you have these children that don't have knowledge, they don't even read the Arabic language. The only thing they know in Arabic is kafir. That's it. Ask them to write Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in Arabic, they make mistake. Alright, kafir, mashallah. They put exclamation mark after it. So we have to be cautious now of not understanding how to handle evidences. Do you think scholars spend their lives working on how to facilitate knowledge for us, that we can just do it like this? La. That every general person is going to be qualified to give rulings? La. Even myself, I'm not qualified to give rulings. Let alone general people. I'm from the general people as well. And it's not being humble, it's a reality. We are only just reviewing knowledge together. Now, I'm not even teaching you, I'm reviewing, sharing that which I've been taught with yourselves, not as a thing of being qualified to give rulings and the likes. It's important for us to understand this. Rulings are not taken from one evidence. بل هي من جمع النصوص, rather, it's combining all the evidences in that. And when you look in the books of fiqh that are detailed, not beginner's book, they're going to tell you all of the evidence is what is determined to them to come to this conclusion. And the same thing when they give a fatwa. A detailed fatwa is going to tell you these are all the evidences, the ayat, the hadith, and the aqwal of the sahaba, and the likes. You know, so it's important to understand these principles. And inshallah, we ask Allah to give us tawfiq that we're able to study books of principle and advance as we progress. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So we stop here and we'll continue Sirah tomorrow and the classes as normal next week. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala nabiyyina wa habib Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Try not to pray by yourself behind the row unless there's no space. Now, barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.